Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar series, the second of 3, is actually about to begin, and I am going to be moderating this session. I am Jim Chick Fominjong. I work at the West Africa Civil Society Institute within the Knowledge Management Unit. Merci beaucoup, Fatmata. Depuis le Niger, nous sommes fiers d'être avec vous cet après-midi. Toujours un plaisir d'échanger avec vous et aussi d'autres interlocuteurs dans différents pays dans notre sous-région. Vous êtes la bienvenue dans ce webinaire. Il y a la traduction ou l'interprétation de ce webinaire, donc bien vouloir choisir l'icône d'interprétation qui est en bas de votre écran. Vous cliquez sur ce icône et choisissez la langue de votre préférence. Si vous choisissez la langue française, vous allez suivre le discours en langue française, et si vous choisissez la langue anglaise, vous allez suivre le discours en langue anglaise. Ladies and gentlemen, this webinar is going to be we are going to have interpretation services, and so if you want to follow in the English language, by default mode when you join, it's going to be in English. However, in case you are getting the French sound or French interpretation of this discussion, you can click on the interpretation icon, choose your language of preference, definitely the English language, and you will follow the discussions in the English language. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we at the West Africa Civil Society Institute, we are very, very pleased to have you here with us this afternoon. And of course, just a gentle reminder that WACSI, in partnership with the Star Ghana Foundation, is organizing a series of discussions in the form of webinars on the alternative financing models for civil society organizations. This is the second of 3 of such discussions, and the third is actually going to be on the 30th of November. You don't want to miss that. For this particular session, we are actually going to be discussing on the social enterprise model, introducing some of us to this model, understanding what this model is all about, how it functions, what are some of the challenges that one can expect to encounter when implementing this model, what are some of the successes that one can anticipate, and why not, what are some of the actions that, mitigation actions that one can envisage or put in place should this model be appropriate for our work. And to engage in this discussion, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have some wonderful seasoned practitioners from Ghana and from Zambia who have actually tested the social enterprise model. They have learned lessons, they have experienced successes that you and I, of course, will be very happy to learn about. And they have encountered challenges that we should definitely know more about. And so we should be expecting to engage brilliantly with these wonderful speakers and panelists that we'll be having this afternoon. If you have any questions, do not hesitate, ladies and gentlemen, to type your questions in the chat, to note them down, because we are going to have an elaborate session of question and answers. Because for us at WACSI and Star Ghana Foundation, under this initiative, we believe in exchanges to enrich our understanding, exchanges to enrich our interpretation of all these practices. If you are just joining us, there is a registration form that is being shared in the chat right now by my colleague Mabel. Please click on it and you will enter your details so that we can share the recording of this webinar with you after once we have it. We will also be sharing a lot of resources with you. For example, an online course on alternative funding models that was developed by WACSI with support of the Wilde Ganzen Foundation. We will also be sharing with you an alternative funding models guidebook that has in it 12 possibilities, alternative ways of mobilizing resources based on what we have with us as civil society organizations in the Global South. All these resources will be shared with us once we register as participants. So please click on the link that has been shared in the chat and make sure you enter your details. And feel free to introduce yourself in the chat room. It is always a pleasure for us at WACSI to engage with you. Aisha from Sahel, GDI in Nigeria, we are very, very pleased to have you, and we definitely hope to have a very fruitful engagement with you. Permit me, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce us to very briefly to our panelists, and then we dive into the discussions. I can assure you that they've given us their word that this is really going to be a deep dive into the practice of the social enterprise model. What's in it for us as civil society organizations? What lessons have they derived that we need to know? What successes have they encountered? What challenges have they equally encountered? And what key takeaways can we have from this particular session, particularly focusing on the social enterprise model? Our first speaker or panelist is, of course, none other than Mohammed Okasha, who is the Chief Executive Officer of NIV, which is an award-winning social impact organization based in Ghana. Prior to his engagement with NIV, he worked with NOSAC for so many years. NOSAC is actually an organization based in the northern region of Ghana. Mohammed Okasha has over 10 years of experience working for social impact, civil society organizations in the country. Mr. Mohammed, we are very, very pleased to have you here with us. Good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon.
It is a pleasure to have you here with us this afternoon, and I love the smile, and I'm very much looking forward to learn a lot from you, and I'm sure many of our participants are equally eager to learn from you this afternoon. Thank you for joining us once again.
Thank you also for the great opportunity to be part of this platform.
Great. Thank you very Great. Thank you very much. And we move from West Africa, which is, relatively in the northern part of Africa, to the southern part of Africa, where we will be talking, to one of the, very empowering civil society actor all the way from the Zambia Governance Foundation in the person of Barbara Nost. Barbara Nost is the Chief Executive Officer of the Zambian Governance Foundation for Civil Society. Before coming to Zambia, Barbara worked in various long and short-term assignments broadly related to governance, institution building, and civil society development in both Europe and Africa. And of course, Barbara has, been devoting her time, to support stakeholders in Zambia, to practice, to test this model and, experience it and make the most use of this wonderful model. Barbara, good afternoon and good to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Hello,
very much.
Barbara.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
It's always a pleasure to have you here with us. And also welcome again to the wonderful participants. We have Alwell Akibe, Idris, Mane, Dina David. Thank you all very much for joining us for this very wonderful session. It will equally be very good to know where you are joining us from, because we know this program is open to global partners. And so it will be exciting to know if we are having some here from the Philippines, from Asia, from South America, from North America, wherever you are, just drop your location and it will be our pleasure to know where you are joining us from. And we are going to move directly into the program. But before we do that, once again, just a quick reminder, a form is being shared in the chat for us to, register for being actively present in this session. Once you do that, we will have your details. And after this session, we will be sharing the recording of the session with you. We will be equally sharing other resources. For example, a guidebook on alternative funding models, an online course derived from the guidebook on alternative funding models, which you can independently peruse through the course for free, and of course, take the course, see what can work for you, what you can adapt to your organization, and you can roll it out in your peculiar context. So feel free to enter your details on this registration form. It will be our pleasure at WACSI and Star Ghana Foundation to share these resources with you. At this moment, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to invite Mohammed. Mohammed, given your rich experience, working with this social enterprise model, feel free, take the floor and give us a deep dive into what this model is all about. What are, some of the successes you've encountered? What we should anticipate as successes? What are the challenges you've encountered, utilizing this approach of mobilizing resources, that we can learn from? Mohammed, you have the floor, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, like my network just messed up a little bit. I would like to
Yeah, I think Mohammed may be having some internet challenges. If that is the case, Mohammed, you may want to turn off your video. In case the internet is challenging for you, you may want to switch off your video and you just roll with the voice, if that works. You are currently on mute, but feel free, you have the floor. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much for this great opportunity. I'm so grateful to be part of this platform to share my little experience as far as social enterprise as a model for alternative financing for civil society organizations. By way of presentation, I would like to briefly introduce the organization that I represent. Before I zoom in, I give some status of social enterprise in Ghana. What is the status? Then try to share some perspective around social enterprise. And under that, we try to see how do we enhance our understanding. I'll touch on building blocks of social enterprises. What actually makes a social enterprise model or idea to become successful? Why and how should we be rolling out our social enterprise model within our organizations? I also share some example of some models that I have worked with and maybe give a conclusion, then we can take questions and discussion. So I move straight. Like I was introduced, my name is Mohammed Okasha. I work for an organization called NIV. It's a social enterprise organization based in Tamale. And we are envisioned to be a leading social enterprise organization in Ghana where sustainable businesses for social impact thrive. We can only do this by developing innovative social enterprise models, vibrant youth business hubs, and also advocating for progressive social enterprise policies and laws that will help sustain businesses in Ghana. So this is what my organization does. By way of core values, innovation is one of the key things that we uphold. Social responsibility, partnership, economic viability, and recognition are some of the 5 values that we cherish so much, and it guides our operation as a social enterprise organization. We have been using about 4 programs to drive our social enterprise model. Skills development is 1, business incubation is 2, also mentorship program. And this one, we call it the NIV Game Changer Caravan. We have been having mentorship programs at the university and senior high school level, just to create the right mindset for social entrepreneurship among young people. The last one is social credit facility. So these are the programs that we do. So by way of status, the social enterprise status in Ghana, from sources, that is the SE Ghana, it is believed that over 100,000 social enterprises are in Ghana and growing, and they are largely dominated by young people and women. Even with these statistics, it is believed that 39% of these enterprises in Ghana are run by women entrepreneurs, and they fall between the ages of 25 to 34. And for me, this is a great opportunity and very promising for a country like Ghana to have most of their youth trying to adopt this model to create change in their community and also create the economic independence that they can have for themselves and their families. Unfortunately, on the part of Ghana, we do not have a comprehensive legal and policy framework. Though there have been effort by WACSI, by Star Ghana Foundation, and also SC Ghana, where in 2019, we had a draft policy which was in place. Thankfully, again, to these partners again, by 2021, we had a revised version. But unfortunately, as we speak, the political will is not there. And for that matter, we have not gotten this policy passed. As way of challenge again within the ecosystem in Ghana, we have little data information as far as social enterprise ecosystem is concerned. But thankfully, again, there have been some efforts by British Council, SC Ghana, among other partners, to ensure that the academia get us the right data to support the work. So you can see there have been some ongoing works by institutions like Accra Technical University, among others, just to get us the right research to help move the course of social enterprises in Ghana. I'll have to move to. So now, moving forward, what is social enterprise or what is social entrepreneurship? So maybe through the chat box, I want colleagues to share, what do you think? What comes into mind when you hear the word social enterprise or social entrepreneurship, so that we pick it from there? I would like to give some, I want it to be interactive. I just want some few comments regarding this question. What is social entrepreneurship or what is social enterprise? Maybe some, 60 seconds, then I can just share the. I'm standing by. What is social entrepreneurship? I just want some.
I think it is that kind of enterprise that has impact on the social, on society in general. The impact could be environmental. It could be uplifting people's standard of living. It could be something that is sustainable, and it lifts everybody out of poverty.
Great, thank you so much. Or
something that addresses an important social need, such as equality, such as gender, friendliness. I mean, especially.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. I would like to pick some few from John, that where social impact leads the profit motive. It pursues social change in society. These are great inputs from all of us, and I would like to add, by way of addition, I think that social enterprises shares at least 4 common features. And the first one has to do with, for every social enterprise, it needs to have a social and environmental objective. That is one. It needs to have a social and environmental objective. The second one has to do with the fact that it has to also have an entrepreneurial behavior. As civil society organizations, please, when we are building or formulating social enterprise models, we need to move away from the usual NGO kind of work. This should be purely business. How can that model bring some money to your organization? So entrepreneurial behavior is also very important. You need to also have some systems and structures in place in order to run the affairs of the model or to operationalize the model. And the last one, we'll have to touch on the reinvestment of the profit. The reinvestment of the profit. This is very important. As social enterprises, we are different from the traditional businesses. And for that matter, the reinvestment of our profit is very important. To summarize all that I have said and also the input that you have made, we can say that in any social entrepreneurial journey or social enterprise model, the social or environmental mission should be ascertained, should be established clearly. The entrepreneurial strategy should also be well defined. And the last one, it should be driven by innovation and also sustainable solutions. The solutions that you will be proposing to the social environmental problems that you are trying to address should be, standing the test of time. So innovation is very key and sustainable solutions are key in the work that we do. When we do all these things, our models can only be social enterprises or social businesses if they create positive benefit for communities or the environment. And mostly, this is the principal aim, whilst also generating revenue or profit. Then we move to the second. Your model can become a social enterprise or a social business if it creates a sustainable social impact by relying on revenue and not the usual grants. So as civil society organization, as we are trying to adapt the social enterprise model, please, let's be mindful of this. How can our models generate the right revenue for us so that we can shift from the usual donor, the charity or donations that we usually do? I would like to introduce us to the 5 building blocks of social enterprises or social entrepreneurship. There are 5, and we need to take note of this as we formulate our social enterprise model. I see this as very important, as something that can help us drive the desired results that we want. And for that matter, WACSI is organizing webinar series like this for us to enhance and broaden our understanding. The first one has to do with the beneficiary group. In any model you formulate, try to think about who benefit from the social or environmental value that you are creating through a product or services. Mostly, these beneficiary group might not be the people, the ones to pay for the services or the product, but they are those who are going to benefit. So you need to be thinking. And we can always be linking the social group to the, the beneficiary group to the social environmental problem that we are trying to solve. I give an example. If a model is going to create an employment opportunity for the disabled, so when products or services are run through this enterprise, the disabled who have been excluded as far as employment opportunities are concerned, they become the beneficiaries. But they are not those who pay for the services or the products that will be run within their model. So they become the beneficiary group. The next we need to look as part of the building block is the customer group. Over here, as you are formulating again, try to ask yourself, who is willing to pay for the product or services that you are trying to solve the problem or satisfy an unmet need? Who is willing? It is not people who want to, who love your products, but the underlying word is which people or which persons are willing to pay for the services. And mostly, they can also be beneficiaries. In some, depending on the social enterprise model, the customers can also become your beneficiary group. Very important as part of the building blocks is revenue model. Revenue model. As civil society organization, as we shift to adopt the social enterprise as a model, as an alternative financing source, what should be our revenue model? Any idea you are formulating to create a social change or environmental change, as well as it being viable, how will revenue be coming into your business? So a strategy for earning revenue outside the reliance on one-off grant or charitable donations, you need to know. This, you need to develop a strategy for that. And that one, we call it the revenue model. I need to mention that for a start, as civil society organization or social enterprises, at the beginning, mostly, it is sometimes very difficult to find reliable revenue sources. So sometimes you see starters or civil society organizations like us searching for reliable recurring revenue streams that can support our long-term sustainability. It is not a very big problem. And thankfully now, there are a lot of opportunities out there that can help CSOs to develop social enterprise models that can be founded. And as we move on, we try to see how can that happen. The next building block, which is the fourth one, should be positive impact. Positive impact. And this one, it should be intentional. How do you create positive impact into the model that you are proposing? So you must define a positive or social or environmental impact that you intend to achieve. This is largely connected to the beneficiary group because they are benefiting, and what is the impact on that group? So this is what we can do. In our traditional businesses, owners or entrepreneurs count monies, and that can be used to measure the successes of their business. In social entrepreneurship, and by this building block, it means that we need to always track the input that we are creating through the social enterprise models that we are bringing on board. Moving forward, the last one, innovation. Innovation is also very important, and by way, we need to have this we need to distinguish this. Innovation and invention. Mostly among young people, they find it, difficulty between these two, innovation and invention. It is true that most inventions are innovative, but in simple terms, and as far as social entrepreneurship is concerned, when we talk of innovation, we are just looking at new strategies or methods that improves upon the way things have been done in the past. Even the model itself is innovative because we want to go away from the usual NGO business into a social enterprise model where we can have sustainable resources, sustainable income for the growth of our organization. And the last one we can also look under innovation is what? What value can you create using same resources or even fewer resources? So this is very critical. As a social enterprise organization, if I'm going to do trainings for any institution, my budgeting will be different from the typical NGO budget. So I can have management fee or whatever fee that could become as a revenue coming into my organization. So we need to take note of this very critical, these 5 building blocks. And they are simple: the beneficiary group, the customer group, the revenue model, what impact you are creating, and how do you apply innovation in all that you do. So now, how do we ensure that our ideas or models are successful? And as social entrepreneur, we have been using 3 lenses to assess the success or validate the models that we run. And in simple, we have these 3 lenses. One is desirability. You can use the desirability lens. You can also use the visibility lens, and you can also use the feasibility lens. And by way of explanation, you can map the desirability lens to human, because you are proposing a solution to solve a problem, be it social or environmental. And you are going to have, customers. You are going to deal with people. So the solution you are proposing, how desirable is it to the people who will be purchasing or having access to your model? So that's why we say it's linked. So we mostly use the human-centered approach. It's not about you as the lead, it's not about your organization, but it's about the people. So the solution should be desirable. And mostly we use these kind of questions to guide when we are formulating and analyzing and assessing the success of these models. First, do people want the solution you are proposing? Do they want the solution? Is the solution wanted by enough people? Because business is about people. The turnover is very important. How many people, want your product? So is this solution wanted by enough people? Can you reach the people who you want, you are proposing this solution to? So these are very critical and very important lens that we need to take note of. The next one is the feasibility. And feasibility is more of technical, and I also look at it as more of internal. You need to assess yourself very well. As civil society organization, the models that we are proposing, do we have the technical know-how? Can we manage this? Can we develop, suitable solutions to this? So this is how you ask yourself questions, and I would like to use these questions again that we normally use to guide in formulating or using this lens to assess our models. Can I or your organization do this? Can you do this? The solution you are proposing. If you can't do it, it means that if you need the assistance or the support of others, and that is where you bring in outside people or external people to support you to deliver. So these are questions that you ask. Can you deliver, manage, or get access to the key resources needed to do this business? For the business model to come real, you need to also look at that, and that's the feasibility. And sometimes we can look at it in terms of talent. You can also look at partners. You can also look at regulation, depending on the model that you are working, or technology. And the last lens is talking about viability, very important. And this focuses on the business. Should I or should your organization do this? And most importantly, can the model generate more revenue than the costs that you'll be incurring whilst operationalizing this model? This is very important, and we need to take note of these 3 lenses. But this is achievable, and this is very simple when we do our research very well. I must add that in formulating our ideas, research is very important. And for me, that research can be defined as an empathy research. How do we empathize with the people we are trying to create the change to? So you do the solution. So when you do more of the research, you'll be able to answer many of the questions under each of these lenses. Okay, so how do we, or why? Let's look at the why first. Why should civil society organizations like ours be adopting social entrepreneurship as an alternative financing source? The first, and this one is very unique, and even aside any other reason, This alone should motivate us to go into social entrepreneurship. For example, donor funds dwindling. This is the very reason why, as civil society organization, we can see that, look, the nature of funds that we used to experience is no more. And this can be coupled with a number of development. For example, in Ghana, Ghana attaining the status of middle income country brought a lot of cuts in terms of aid into Ghana. There's also a government policy or strategy, the current government policy or strategy that we know to be called the Ghana Beyond Aid. This policy, among other factors, has brought a sharp cut in terms of the aid that Ghana we used to experience over the past years. And almighty COVID-19, the hit of COVID-19 also made many donor communities to cut down their external aid. And this alone should motivate us to go into social entrepreneurship or to adopt the social enterprise model as an alternative financing. This is very important. COVID alone threatened the work of civil society organization. And for us, it is timely for Star Ghana and WACSI to be championing this cause, and we need to take advantage of that. The next one that can be a motivation is of the fact. This is a fact, we've tested it. Social enterprising is a self-sustaining model over short to medium term. And for that matter, it can serve as an alternative financing model for we civil society organization. Social enterprises can also or always generate benefit other than pure economic ones, as it can promote social cohesion through their intended social purposes, social and environmental purposes that they exist. So these are motivations, these are things that should motivate us to see social enterprise as an alternative financing model. It's also a fact that it drives innovation and generate needed support for grassroots talent. Within the work that you do as civil society organization, there are some gaps that at the grassroots level. We can identify these gaps and formulate solutions to address these. And for that matter, this is where we can drive the innovation and create, sustainable solutions in the areas that we are working. And as a model, and the nature of its operationalization, it is a great tool that fosters collective ownership and involvement in decision-making. So if you are working with young people, if you are working with women, and you choose social entrepreneurship, the models that will be running, there is no doubt that it will meaningfully engage these target groups in all the processes, and the ownership will be there. And this alone makes it more successful, your model successful as you roll it out. I want to say this last for the why we need to go in this. Social enterprise is very important because CSOs can generate their own funds. This is a part. Through this, and as I move on, I'll try to give examples and let you understand that yes, we can truly generate our own funds. And when we do that, we can stay true and focus to our mission, the mission that we, our civil society organizations were set up for. Currently, most NGOs have shifted from their mission just because of the over-reliance on donors. And even now, we have some, look, they do all kinds of programming. There is no strategic, in terms of thematic areas, because donors come with fund, and because they still want to be in business, because they still want to survive, they just accept all kinds of projects to run. And this is not good for the future of civil society organization. With social enterprises, we can be able to do better than currently what we are doing. So now, how can we have this thing done? How? How can we have this thing done? It is simple. Civil society organization, first and foremost, we need to have clear business models, social enterprise models. Let's come up with social enterprise models with the right systems and structures in place. When we do that, we can access the right funding. So please, this is very critical. Let's have clear and clearly defined business models with right systems, structures in place. And when we do that, we can access the right funding. Now, there are a lot of funding, especially funding that are targeting the implementation of SDGs. Look, there's a lot of money, there's a lot of opportunity in there, so we can take advantage of that. And people in Ghana, civil society organization in Ghana, I would like to encourage all of us to try to join the platform that we call SE Ghana. This is a platform for social enterprise organizations. So we can be a civil society organization, and if we agree to be part of this course, let's join. We can benefit a lot with some of the funding that can be shared within members of the platform. This is very important. We can also, when we put in our models with the right systems, with the right structures, for the start, I will advise with my experience to say that we can leverage the operationalization of those models on existing projects to grow these social enterprise models. Why am I saying that? As business, you always try your possible best to minimize your operational cost, your cost of operation, your cost of production, so that you can maximize profit. So when we leverage on existing project, possibly our operational costs at the beginning, leverage on existing projects, you will be able to, reserve or save that staff cost in that light. So this is my suggestion and advice. We should start by leveraging on existing projects. When I was with NOSAC and we're rolling out social enterprise models, this is how we did, and it helped the group of the models very well. Within shortest possible time, you can see a significant growth of it. But if it was going to be a standalone unit or standalone models to be run by different people, the cost could be high. Yes, you could also be making profit, or the revenue could be coming, but it cannot be compared to the one I'm suggesting currently. We can also do this by creating a unit or department within our civil society or NGO organization to handle the social enterprise models operation. Let's create units or departments within the organization so that solely these people can be running the affairs of it. That is by the start. Let's do this and leverage it on existing project. Creating an independent or separate vehicle to run the affairs of social enterprise model. As it grows, it may come to a time that you need to create a different vehicle to run the affairs of the social enterprise model. And that is where, when it grows to some extent. So, and with this, the creation of a different vehicle, you need to have separate management for the two vehicles. And I've just illustrated here. For example, NOSAC and NIV. When you create that different vehicle, the management of NOSAC should be different from the management of NIV. The board of directors, they should be different from each other. And the reason is that when you do this, they become like related entity. And for that matter, NIV can do business with NOSAC, or NOSAC can do business with NIV without any conflict of interest. That is very important. And also in any transaction that you are going to run, especially when you are using different vehicles to run your social enterprise model and that of your NGO or civil society organization, which is not for profit making, you need to be guided by the principle of arm's length. You use the arm's length principle to guide your dealing. So it means that if NOSAC is going to transact with NIV, the prices that NIV gives to NOSAC as a related entity should be the same prices that NOSAC will give to WACSI, which is not a related entity. So these are the distinctions, and when you do that, we can run our social enterprise models very successful without any breach of law within the country. So this is very important. I would like to share with you one of the models that we have been running over the past year, and we call it the FIPA Fund. FIPA Fund. It is called the Financial Inclusion for Poverty Alleviation Fund. So you ask yourself, what is the social model? So our social enterprise model is the FIPA. What social issues are we trying to address? Gender inequality, access to credit in the Ghanaian financial sector is very worrisome. And even data has it that the lack of access to formal credit in Ghana is very worrisome. And it even treats the female as a fiddle, a second fiddle to men. So it means that data has it that even the available credit that we have, more men get access to these than women. So it is very important for Ghana for us to solve, or it is very important for us to solve this problem, because it's human and material resources for her social economic enterprise development. We try to align this problem we are trying to solve to a national priority. And that national priority in Ghana is for the development of microfinance. That led to the enactment of the National Board for Small-Scale Industries, Act 1981, Act 434. And now it is superintended by a new act, which we now have the Ghana Enterprise Agency Act. And the mission or objective of this is to promote and develop MSMEs in Ghana. So we bring in the FIPA is supposed to help women entrepreneurs to have reliable access to credit in order to grow and expand their businesses. So who are our customers? So largely, women remain marginalized economically when it comes to solving this problem. And we are solving this because there is high cost of credit, loans, access, delay, and demand for collateral. These are all challenges affecting women. Affecting, let me say, businesses or social enterprises in Ghana, but women are largely affected. So loan now extended more access to salary earners than even in businesses. These are some of the challenges that we have. And because of these challenges, we have taken women to be our customers, our main customers. So the credit is only given to women, looking at this model. And this can be backed from a data that we got where Ghana was ranked in 2009, 106 out of 139 in terms of easy access to credit within the world, and which means that we still have a lot of problems to solve. Ghana being 106 is something alarming, and these are some of the motivations that we created the FIPA Fund. Okay, so with our FIPA Fund, we started with 10,000 Ghana cedis. And I would like to explain. We do it, it's a revolving fund. It's a pool of funds that we give to women. And before you can access this credit, you need to have a women group that are actively in any form of economic activities. So we give these monies to them. We give it in groups and it rotates. When we pick repayment, we don't put it anywhere, we give it to another group. So that is how it rotates. And we have placed 10% interest onto this fund. And women cherish and our fund than even the financial institution. Because if you look at the current market rate, ours is very low. And the social nature of our operation is making a lot of women groups to be coming in for. And within 5 years, we had grew that fund from 10,000 Ghana cedi to close to over 120 Ghana cedi. That was around 2018, 2019. But something happened along the line. Because we were trading with rural communities, there was this bank in Ghana called the Chien Bank. It was dotted around many rural districts. And for that matter, in order for us not to be carrying money, we had an account where we always push this money in. So when we go to any district, we can withdraw the money for the revolving nature to continue. But when the financial cleanup hits in Ghana, our money close to over 70,000 was trapped into this GM Bank. We have done all that we are supposed to do, but currently we have not yet been paid within that month. So it slowed down the operationalization of this fund. So within 2021, the directors of my organization came out with 65,000 for us to roll it out. And when we were doing this from the onset, this was where I was still in Northside, micromanaging this fund. And that is why within 5 years, you could see that it grew within that. But in 2021, we were now using the NIV, a different vehicle, to now lead the operation of this. And we rotate the money in such a way that by the close of August, the fund from 65, just close to 2 years now, have grew from 65,000 Ghana cedi to 134,439 Ghana cedi. This is how we have been able to grow the fund. And this fund is supporting the work of NOSAC in some works that we do. And even NIV, the Game Changer Caravan that I've mentioned, it is helping. Because of time, that is why I've just given highlight of how we operationalize this. And we work with over 60 groups currently. And as you roll out, the money keep expanding because that 10%, for example, so if we give 20,000 to any group, it means that by the end of the repayment, we have increased it by 2,000 Ghana cedi. And within a year, we can revolve the money as many as possible because once a group pays, we give it to another group. And that's how the money has been able to grow to this extent. So now, by moving forward, we have broadened or even revised our model to upscale this FIPA fund. And I'm trying to just share with you the features of the current FIPA fund that we are pushing. I'll look at the supply side and also look at the demand side. Currently, we want to raise our target size of it to 1.5 million Ghana cedi. This is what we are looking out for, 1.5 million Ghana cedi. And we can only do that through multiple inflows. Currently, we have close to over 130. But through the multiple inflows sources, we want to increase this size to this within a possible period of 5 years. This is what we have. We are doing currently, and we are doing it through a hybrid system. We'll be soliciting for grants to push and grow this, and we'll also be calling for investment type of contribution. For example, organizations, individuals can invest into this fund, and by so doing, we can achieve the target of the 1.5 million Ghana cedi. The emphasis on this by way of social outcome will be financial inclusion, poverty alleviation, and gender equality. In terms of still on the supply side, people who will invest in the fund can earn a return, and it will be significantly less than the market return. We're a social enterprise organization. So we shall be negotiating very well with investors, people who want to come on board, so that at least whatever return they will be getting, so that it can be less than the current market return. For example, if the current market return for investment is 5%, we can be negotiating to see if we can get less than 5%, so that the fund can grow more bigger. In terms of the supply side, in terms of redeemable, whether you can redeem your investment, we want to have it with a minimum of 5 years. Because that's how we can grow the fund very well. So it's only for multiple of 5 years thereafter when you want to invest in the fund. By way of demand side, it is going to still be the group lending model. It is going to be the social collateral system. We don't ask for any collateral. We use the group as a collateral. Okay, I can see Jem hand up.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry for prompting you abruptly. Just to indicate, if you can kindly wrap up, that will be very helpful. There are a couple of questions, and Barbara is on standby, willing to equally share her rich experiences. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So this is what we will still be doing. As part of our fund, any group that receive the money, we are not there for just the profit. We shall be giving them business support that they will need. For example, many of these women lack the requisite skills in financial literacy and business management. So we'll be supporting them with this kind of trainings once you are accessing the credit. These are some of the benefits that the women get. We also link them to various opportunities within the ecosystem. So like I was saying, having clear systems and structures. With the current system, we have a concept paper for that. We have also developed a market paper or marketing document for it. We have drafted systems like the loan approval sheet. We also have the credit appraisal model. All these things are things that we have developed in order to give, trust into the fund. Anybody can invest for us to go and solve the social lesson. We also have, I just want to share some few models that we also have. We have a training space that we are renting out as one of our models that is bringing revenue into the work that we are doing. We also have one from Climate Action Lab, and we have introduced a climate action model. We are trying to move away from paperbacks, for example. So we'll be doing research in that, like engaging hotels, engaging a restaurant. How can we minimize the use of polythene by going into paperbacks? And when we do this sensitization, we'll prototype these paperbacks, and we can serve as a supply point to these companies so that we can still be in business. We also have a model we call Ladies on Wheels model, where we'll try to let women take advantage of the transport system within the northern region, like the Uber, airport, drop off, taking children to school, among many others. So these are some of the models that we are having as an organization. So by way of conclusion, social enterprise is very important because with CSOs, we can be able to generate the funds that we need. I must say that investors, or even partners like WACSI, Star Ghana must engage grassroots level to better understand the concept, the context and support CSOs in order for us to diversify our income sources. Thank you so much. I think because of time, and I think I was able to touch on so many things, but I think during the question and answer session, if I have left out anything, I can come in to fill it up. Thank you so much for the attention.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. That was quite rich and powerful. And I really like the way you concluded with a direct message to WACSI and Star Ghana. We are all ears, and of course, we will, reflect on that recommendation and endeavor to continue in our efforts to ensure that not only do we understand the context within which grassroots organizations work in, but also we can support these organizations better to take up this, to understand what this model is all about, and take it up as a new way, an innovative way of getting the resources they need to continue the great work they are doing. There are a couple of questions for you. I can see Marianne, Charles, John, Aisha, their hands are up. There are equally questions in the chat from Melissa and Olubofemi. I hope I didn't miss the name. Sorry about that if I missed your name, sir. However, we will come to the question and answer session. So please do not forget your questions, please. And if you have other questions, do not hesitate to drop them in the chat. If you are just joining us, there is a form, a registration form being shared in the chat. Kindly enter your details so that you can have the recording of this session, that we are currently having. I can equally see Gilbert's hand up. We will take all the questions definitely. Mohammed, maybe the question you can probably respond to in the chat is, you highlighted the need for organizations to join SE Ghana. I think that should be Social Enterprise Ghana, so that where people share experiences. So please, can you kindly share either a contact detail or a registration link where those interested in joining this wonderful network can possibly contact you or join easily. Meanwhile, at this moment, permit me, ladies and gentlemen, to move over to Zambia, where we have Barbara Nost waiting to share with us the experience of the Zambian Governance Foundation on the Chuluka Social Enterprise model. Barbara, we are very curious to learn from you how, what has worked, in your efforts to implement this model? What has been your experience so far? What challenges have you encountered? And what key takeaways can we have from the Chuluka, Chuluka Social Enterprise model? And ladies and gentlemen, we'll be coming to take all your questions. So please do not forget them and do not leave us just now. Thank you. And Barbara, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you. I can hear you 5 on 5. Thank you.
Do you also see my slides?
Yes, we can see your slides. Maybe you may just want to enlarge the screen.
Oh, okay.
But you can continue. We can see them clearly. Great. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. I'm the practitioner here, so I'll be talking about our experience. But before I talk about our experience, I have to take you back to why it all started and where it all started. We started off like a typical NGO. We were endowed with a lot of money from bilateral donors. We had roughly 4 million euro annually, and starting in 2009. But soon we realized we cannot function as a pool fund. We need to register an organization. So registered a non-profit company limited by guarantee in July 2009, after months and months of negotiations with our donors. In 2012, we had a very strong board that put their foot down, that kept on insisting that they didn't just want to be the rubber stamp of foreign donors. They wanted to make decisions. This is Zambian organizations, and they should be, if donors wanted them to implement their programs, they should be earning a management fee. However, this did not go down well with our donors. They rejected it, apart from one donor. So this is where our journey started. We said, well, this is not the right way of doing things. Let's start small, and let's start integrating, or let's establish a small enterprise unit in the Zambian Governance Foundation, and we did that in 2016. But because of our donors not believing in having a social enterprise activity or unit within our nonprofit organization, we thought it would be wise to outsource it, or to set up a separate unit. And this is what we did. We set up a separate unit in 2017. This is when Chuluka Limited was born, in October 2017. And since 2017, we have started a journey of trying to diversify funding and transitioning into a hybrid organization and a community foundation. So here, this is a short graph that really shows the kind of journey, the journey we were on in 2009. Chuluka was born 4 years, almost 9 years after inception of ZGF. Our funding was, one second, we were very stable for the first couple of years, but in 2017-18, our funding kind of dropped. We were kind of limping between 2018-19, but in 2020, we kind of regained our strength because we changed our strategy. And since 2021-2022, we are maybe no longer a big Mercedes, but we are a very stable, robust Beetle that can comfortably implement the program. And I think this journey was also supported by our subsidiary Chuluka Limited, that was born and registered in October 2017. And during the same process, we also transitioned into a hybrid community foundation. So these are two processes that went side by side. So this is our subsidiary. Chuluka means, in Nyanja, means to prosper. We have a website which is a bit updated. So if you look it up and it's updated, please bear with us. We are also transitioning, trying to change Chuluka. So now let me talk about how Chuluka is structured. It's a company limited by shared under the Companies Act. It was registered in 2017. It was owned by 95% by the mother organization, ZGF. 5% are with the founders of ZGF, founders of Chuluka. It was set up as a subsidiary intentionally because the purpose was to generate income through services through the sale of services and sale of products, and ultimately to help pay the core costs for ZGF, the mother company. So, but we have made very many assumptions. And when I take you later, when we continue to see that some of our assumptions were very wrong, but it's an interesting journey nevertheless. We had the assumption we have substantive internal capacities that we could monetize, and which is true. We had substantial grants management capacity, communications capacity, ICT capacity, and training capacity. We could train on, I don't know, up to 15 different topics because we had in-house capacities. And we assume ZGF is known as a credible civil society support facility, which is true to some extent, particularly when it comes to the stakeholders and the civil society organization we worked with. We were assuming that there's a need for sustainable and affordable products such as eco stoves, solar home light systems, eco charcoal, and so on and so forth. And we are also assumed that staff we could no longer accommodate within ZGF because of shortage of funding, that they would like the idea of moving to the social enterprise. So where we are placing our social enterprise model, Chuluka, I think it was purely, as I mentioned, purely set up for income generation purposes, because it was supposed to help finance the core costs of ZGF. But it was, I think, for me, it is in the intersection between income generation and social impact. This has changed over time. So what does it do? What does Chuluka do? We offer services and products. The first unit, we called it sustainable and affordable, reliable solutions. We planned, or we did to some extent, sell solar home systems, eco stoves, and eco charcoal. Unit 1. Unit 2, ICT for development. We had staff, and we still have staff. We are able to do website creation, website hosting, training, website development, virtual meetings, social media, database development, and so on and so forth. And we also have started hiring out our boardroom, our office space. We still do until to date in our one of our cars. The third unit, we called it, in the absence of a better idea, making organizations function better. We basically offered our core competencies. We could train in all sorts of different areas. Some of them are mentioned here, but I think up to 15. And we were also able to do studies and doing assessments for donors, for agencies, for other organizations, for other CSOs and NGOs and INGOs. And we did quite a number of studies, like mapping studies. We did a study on engagement study of engagement platforms. We did we administered scorecards, questionnaires, and so on and so forth. So these are the 3 units. But what were the lessons learned? The lessons learned during startup were the following. First of all, we had limited startup capital, or hardly any startup capital, which has also limited or kind of put a strain on investing in setting up the company, the Chuluka. For example, we didn't have money in the beginning to get a proper financial management software, or to put in place systems that are stable and robust, which had repercussions later. We also, moving from a conventional NGO setup to a business setup has been challenging. Why has it been challenging? Because people that work in an NGO do not necessarily have a business mindset. They are used to work for NGOs. They're used to work on grants, to implement the grant funds they've received, but they are not usually used to having to constantly run for money and run for income and hustle. So the NGO mindset has definitely been a big obstacle. Then we had discussed the minimal resources we had at the inception at startup was also an obstacle to marketing, because if you don't have money to invest in marketing, you cannot really go big, dream big. We had to start small, and because of that, it also lacked clarity, because we were more into firefighting, trying to move one step from one step to the next, rather than having the big picture and dreaming big. So, but however, this evolved over time. It became slightly better. The fourth lesson learned is the corporate design and branding, of course, took long because we had limited resources, and the staff. We moved to the subsidiary. We had adjusted the salary to what we could afford, and this, of course, during startup was much less than what they were used to, and this was a big problem for the staff, because they thought they were penalized. They didn't want. They thought they were mistreated. They didn't like the fact that they had now moved. They had moved to the subsidiary and had to do jobs they liked, but they didn't like the salaries. But talking to them about affordability was a simple, was something they would never understand, they would never accept. Also because they've never worked for business before. So what were the lessons learned internally? We had very few staff that were set aside they were put into the subsidiary. So but the finance and admin section, admin work was totally reliant on the mother company. So which meant that for me and the finance team and the administrator, we also had to manage the subsidiary. It increased our workload, and it increased sometimes also during peak periods, like when audits have to be done before end of March every year. Financial reports financial reports in preparation for board meetings, regulatory compliance work. All of this. So we had to screen the market. We had to bid for contracts, service contracts. We had to do financial reporting. We had to also now get used to to comply with the regulations for for-profit companies, which is very different from non-profit companies. We had to take care of marketing and branding. Also saying that none of us has ever really worked long-term in the private sector. I have done consultancy work in the past, so what it means to suffer while you don't have any contract. But you get to reap the benefits if you work hard, because you eventually end up having contracts or service contracts if you work hard. And the working hard really pays off if you put a lot of effort into your business. So, and as I mentioned also, it meant a lot of more work when it came to in relation to regulatory compliance work and governance, registration, submission of annual returns, taxes, and so on and so forth, name it. What were the lessons learned for when it came in relation to our services that we offered or we still offer? This was, I think, our biggest problem. NGOs, they were so much used to getting free trainings because they were spoiled by our donors. They did not want, there was no willingness and no understanding why all of a sudden they should pay training fees. Big problem, because we thought we have a huge capacity to roll out trainings for fees in exchange for fees. We have, it was a mistake. It was a wrong assumption on our side. Also, NGOs, many of them never or have limited, or they don't have unrestricted funds at all. So meaning training that for fee-based training or trainings that are only been obtained through paying a fee rather than going there for free is simply not, for many NGOs, not an option. Then trying to move out of the NGO circle, a clientele, we moved outside and we tried to attract micro and small medium enterprises. Which we contacted a lot of small enterprises, and to offer our ICT service, because we thought they are all not visible. Why shouldn't they have small websites? Why should they have not 1-page or 2-page websites that makes them visible to the world or visible to their clients? But we simply couldn't attract a single organization. Only a month and basically years later, we were told SMEs are never interested in getting visibility, because once they're visible, they've been haunted down by the Summit Revenue Authority. So it's a tax issue. So we also did not understand that problem. Then the perception problem. They knew us as a civil society support facility all of a sudden. And they thought, well, how can, when we put out our tenders, our financial proposals, we have put in, we assumed we can add market prices, fees that are proposed by other organizations. But some of the feedback we got from some of our clients is, how dare you to put your costs at this level? Some of them thought that our costs were too high, because they thought a non-profit company, even though we're working through Churuka, cannot demand market rates, which I found very interesting. Then the other problem, the currency fluctuations. If you're working with a longer-term service contracts that span over 1.5 years, and the currency fluctuates greatly, it really has an impact on your income. This is something one has to manage. I don't know whether you can actually manage it or not, but at the end of the day, sometimes you end up not having made any income at all, or only losses. The internal constraints were, Chuluka staff was heavily reliant on ZGF technical staff, on everything, also to prepare tender documents, to implement service contracts, and to do the final draft and final reports to the clients. And the other lesson we had to learn, it only pays off to work with your internal staff in-house, because you're earning a margin, a profit margin from the staff you offer to your clients. But if you have to work with external service provider of associates, the administrative costs for managing those external service provider associates become so huge that does not pay off. It becomes a liability, particularly if those external service provider or associates do not do good work, because at the end of the day, the organization that has hired them to provide the service to a third party, you have to do the quality assurance. And if the quality of the work is not done properly, you are ending up doing the work for them. So for us, we moved away from this model. We are not working with external service because it simply is, it's a loss, and it needs much more much more work on our side. What other lessons have we learned as to our products that we were selling? We thought we could easily administer online pay-as-you-go systems for solar home systems, but I think we made a big mistake assuming so, because this is very expensive and also time intensive and cumbersome to administer. We were competing with alternative cheap solar products, mostly from China, because ours were high quality solar products that people could not afford. There were supply chain problems. For example, at some point, eco stoves got stuck in Tanzania, or solar lamps were simply not available, although people wanted them. Then internal constraints in relation to the products. We had no experience with negotiating lucrative agreements with private sector entities. We work in one of the biggest problems here was working and building a network of reliable sales agents and managing those sales agents. We had cases where the agents were going off and they never came back, or they didn't come back with the project, or they did not resubmit or come back, return the commissions or goods. So we have also all sorts of problems there. So working with agents is very, very tricky, and one really needs to understand the market. What are the main lessons learned? And almost done, because I know we are very short of time. Chuluka was set up in a rush with limited capital. The Chuluka was set up with savings we had from ZGF. Ideally, we should have some not substantial capital, but capital set aside and time should be given for the unit, for the new subsidiary, or for the entity to slowly be built up. We were assuming that NGO staff can learn entrepreneurship overnight. I think we were very wrong, because this is simply not the case. Either you have an entrepreneurial spirit or you don't have an entrepreneurial spirit. I think few people maybe can learn it. Either you love it or you hate it. So I think one has to be very careful in what kind of stuff you work with. So for the sale of products, you need to hire, if I would have to start all over again, I would hire individuals that are real hustlers. And I would no longer ever ask an existing staff member to move to a social enterprise, because it doesn't work. Getting hustlers, not everyone is a hustler. It has to be part of your personality. So these are specific people, and I would only go for the hustlers. I would also always make it very clear, if I would have to start all over again, keep the social enterprise subsidiary completely separate from the mother organization, because cross-fertilization, where staff can talk how much they earn, how much they make, and there's jealousy involved, because the staff in the subsidiary, they figure out that they earn much less because they don't generate the kind of money. It creates a negative atmosphere, and this has also created a toxic atmosphere between those ones who were moved to the social enterprise, and eventually they exited because they were not suited for the job. And I think the biggest lesson for us is you can only sell really well what you're good at doing. So I think what we're good at doing, and this was the biggest earner for us, is selling our core competencies. We made money with our trainings. We made money with our assessments, because people knew us for these specific core competence. People did not know us as EcoStove salespersons or as those ones who distribute solar lights, or they didn't see us doing that, and we had to walk 100 extra, 1,000 extra miles to get that confidence. But we have never gotten there, because we could never compete with organizations that are purely focusing on solar lights or eco stoves. We have only integrated as a side business, which was a mistake in hindsight. But however, even though we have failed when it comes to sale of products, I think it was a very interesting experiment, and I personally think also the team has learned a hell lot, and I think in that sense it was not a time wasted. But also in the last couple of 2 years, we have put aside Chuluka a little bit, because ZGF, the mother organization, is undergoing a transition. So the team here, we didn't pay much attention to the business. But if you don't pay attention to the business, there is simply no business, because business doesn't come to you if you're not constantly out there hustle. You tender for contracts and so on and so forth. But despite that, we still have earned some additional income for ZGF. So I'm giving you a little bit of an overview. So don't be shocked. This year the figures are not yet complete, but this is what we have made, sales and the costs of sales. Of course, this does not include the startup costs. There's still a liability that Chuluka has to pay back to ZGF, but I hope eventually those startup costs will be written off and we can move forward. So don't look at the 2022 figures. I think in the past we could have managed to generate income if we wouldn't have the startup costs. But I think going forward, if we continue with that model, I think it can make a difference, but I think we would have to take out completely the component sales of products and just stick to our core competencies because we have understood this is where we can make the money. So I think I'll keep it at this. I hope this was short and comprehensive enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you so much, Mohammed, for the insightful knowledge that has been shared. The experience is very wonderful, and I can already see some questions in the chat. 4 hands are raised, and so I'll just start taking the questions. And maybe to both moderators from the chat, Gilbert Ngwane says, how much money does an organization need to start a social enterprise? Maybe I'll read a couple of questions, and then I'll pause. We get the responses, and then we continue. Then Melissa Juicy, and I think this question is directed to Mohammed. How does the beneficiary group differ from the customer group? How does the beneficiary group differ from the customer group? That is to Mohammed. Benjamin, I think Benjamin Olurunfemi actually posed the question, what about many of us that have developed a social enterprise idea for our NGOs, but found it hard to get sponsors or funding for it? So are there any tips that organizations that have initiated social enterprises need to have or need to know to be able to mobilize resources to kickstart their social enterprise initiatives? John Obwaba, and I think his hand is raised, so I'll come to you, John, when I'm taking the hands that are raised. Josephine Ogazi, and this question is directed to Barbara, what is a donor pool fund? And also to Barbara, what tools do you use for mapping, please? So maybe I'll begin with Mohammed, then to Barbara. Mohammed, and colleagues whose hands are raised, I will be coming to you shortly. Mohammed, you have the floor, please.
Okay, so thank you so much for these two questions. And I would like to start with Melissa's question about what is the difference between the beneficiary group and the customer group. Like I mentioned earlier on, the beneficiaries group, these are the people who are benefiting from the social or environmental value that you are creating through the solution that you are bringing on board. And they mostly are not the people who will be paying for the services or the product that your social enterprise model is being operated upon. The customer group, they are just the people who are willing. For example, if you look at the FIPA model that I shared, in that case, the women who are in businesses, they are our customer group. But the model too, they are the beneficiaries as well, direct beneficiaries. These women are beneficiaries because they access the fund to grow their own businesses. But the let me say, the external beneficiaries will be either their families, their children, and whatever they use the benefit of their businesses to do, and those people can become the secondary or external beneficiary. So these are the two. People who are willing to pay for the services or product are your customers, and those who benefit from the value you are creating are your beneficiary group. This is what I can say about that. Then we'll move to Benjamin. Yes, honestly, I don't know whether you have been able to share some of these ideas, but one good thing that I will say is that the networking, and that is why I mentioned the SC Ghana, because this is a platform where there are opportunities and executives from this body share those opportunities for members to try their hands on. So that is one. Try to network with platforms like that, and even coming on board here and introducing yourself and linking up with colleagues, like-minded people. The possibility of they buying into or linking you up to opportunities is very key. But the good thing is always try to have a well-defined model so that it is appealing to investors. This is what I would like to say. But you can pick our contacts, we can talk and see whatever models are that, and if we find opportunities, we can share with you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. And over to you, Barbara, please.
Can you remind, the first question was about pool funds?
The first question is from Josephine Ogazi, and she says, what is a donor pool fund? And okay. The second question is from Idris Mane. What tools do you use for mapping?
Okay. A donor pool fund is a basket fund that holds donor aid money on behalf of donors. So we are holding and managing money on behalf of 5 bilateral donors in the European Union. And we were distributing it based on a management contract or a joint financing agreement. That's a pool fund. And the second question, how are we doing mapping? Mapping of mapping in what sense? Mapping as one of our services that I mentioned in the presentation.
I'm sure that is what it is. Idris Mane, can you please elaborate on that? I'm sure, Idris, you can just raise your hand out and I'll take you. But before, if Idris is there and he raises his hand, then we'll come back to you, Barbara. Permit me now to take colleagues whose hands have been raised. Okay, Idris is there. Idris, can you clarify, please?
Hello, good afternoon, please. Well, my question is, I have seen during your presentation that you said you do mapping, something like that. And I was asking, like, what tools do you use for mapping? Because as a GIS expert, so I would really want to know the tools that you use for mapping. Is it mapping of affected population or mapping of, where you do your activities or whatsoever, please?
No, okay. No, it's not GIS mapping. It was stakeholder mapping.
All right. Okay. Thank you so much, please.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you very much, Idris, for your patience and for the clarification. And for colleagues whose hands are raised, permit me to begin with Charles Van Dyke.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. So thanks, Mohammed and Barbara, for such informative and rich presentations. I learned a lot, and I believe everybody else did. The question I have for Mohammed is about the hustler question, because I love how Barbara put that. So how has it worked for NIV? Is it the same experience as the Zambia Governance Foundation in terms of the kind of people that are growing NIV? Did they come from NOSAC? Did they also have the NGO mindset? What was done to transition into that business mindset? Or you got a particularly or a different group to do that? So I would love to hear, and I'm sure colleagues would like to hear that experience. And then for Barbara, how are you transitioning out those who are not hustlers and bringing in the hustlers? And if you could be specific about, what the hustler traits are, it would be helpful. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you. I'm sure you've noted down the questions. Emmanuel Poplampo.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. I thank Mohammed and Barbara. I have a question for both of them. Mohammed, I'm interested in knowing how you structured the loans to the women. Is it something that was formal or informal in terms of agreements, how much they had to pay in interest? Is that something that they had to sign a document for, or is just a verbal agreement? I want to know that. And for Barbara, how you structured the shares and how each share, the value of each share. Could you share that with us either in writing or as a saved document so we can peruse and see if we can apply some of those to our own organizations? Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Emmanuel. Daniel, we will come to you. I think these are very loaded questions. Maybe I should begin with Barbara.
Okay. The hustling.
Yes.
The hustling is an interesting one. How did the hustlers transition? The hustlers, those ones who didn't know how to hustle, they did not generate income, so they made themselves irrelevant in the social enterprise. Because if you don't hustle, you don't generate income, you don't have a salary that you can draw from, then you have to go. That's a very simple, like in every business. If you have 100 gumboots to sell, but you don't sell a single gumboot, at the end of the day, you don't have anything to cover your costs. So it's a very simple calculation. So I think that question, we didn't transition them, they transitioned themselves. But what are the traits of hustlers? First of all, those ones who constantly pick up the phone, those ones who are innovative by reaching new stakeholders, new clients, that talk to people to find out what the potential clients what the landscape looks like. People who are out there, people that are interested in exploring. You cannot be an NGO worker it's tied to the desk and has no intention to explore the environment in order to find potential clients. Unfortunately, there's some few that were moved to the social enterprise had that character trait, and I think that's what you should not have. It's like, I think more or less like being on the call center. You're constantly on the run, you're constantly busy, you're constantly trying to get new clients on. And I think not everyone has that outgoing personality. You also need to be a good talker. You need to be writing well. You need to be able to present well. And I think not everyone has that kind of personality. It would also not be for me. Because I don't like hustling. I can hustle when I know exactly what I'm talking about, but I cannot pretend to be a hustler if I don't understand the product. So, but I think real hustlers, they can acquire the skills and they can sell you anything. They can even sell you their grandmother if they're real good hustlers. So I think this kind of personality trait is very important for a social enterprise to succeed.
Thank you very, very much for those insights. And I'm sure for those of us who are looking forward to establish social enterprise models, we now know some of the qualities of personnel that we should bring on board our team. Mohammed, there were some questions for you. Okay. You have the floor, Mohammed.
Okay, thank you so much.
Permit me to interrupt, but Barbara didn't answer my question about the shareholding and
Sorry, I thought I was... Yeah, there was a change in the law, so we had to change the value of the shares. But I cannot give you I have to look it up. I haven't looked into it for a couple of years. But if you're interested, you can send me your email and I can share the document with you. Is that okay?
That is okay. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Okay, so thank you so much. I think I'll begin with Charles's question regarding the transition. I think in my presentation, I mentioned that initially when I was in NOSAC, I started to micromanage this model. But for the nature of the growth or the development, we had to now create the separate vehicle, of which made me to resign as a formal employee of NORSAC and now an employee of NIV. And when that happened, I cannot do it alone. So I had to bring 2 people on board to support this idea. And these are people who are also with the right entrepreneurial attitude and mindset to drive the cause of NIV. So this is how we manage the transition. And looking at the work of the model, we had to even get some agents who will be helping for the repayment, because the more you revolve, the more interest you get. And for that matter, we brought in extra 5 who are, let me say, casual workers for the fund. And this is how we have been able to manage the transition. So as we speak now, since 2020, I'm no longer a staff of NORSAC, but the different, the related entity called NIV. So that's how we manage the transition. In terms of structuring of the loans, because it's a social enterprise, and I spoke about innovation, we want to be so different from the former financial institution. So what we normally do is that we engage the community a lot. Groups that we are going to work with them, we engage them, they are involved in the process. We discuss about the interest. It was from even the groups that, look, the woman can tell you the interest rate, and we made it that simple. For example, if a woman takes 1,000 Ghana cedi to support her business, she knows that it's 10%, but she won't tell you it's 10%. She knows that for every 100 Ghana cedi, it is 10 cedi that she's going to pay at the end of the repayment. This is how we have simplified it for them, and they have seen the need for it. They have understood and accepted it and know that it's far better than the formal financial institution. So we have agreement though, but they sign, we use the group collateral. So the group, they have executives. So the group sign on behalf of the entire group. One other key thing that we have instituted is we are using guarantor. We get a very influential person within the community. The group is formed so that this person witnesses everything. And these are respected men and women in the community. So the group look up to that person. So if they default, it means that they are disgracing that influential person. This is how we have managed to institutionalize things, and the repayment that we are currently having is 100%. And I must add that we don't form groups. We advertise our product. The communities establish their group and express interest, and we go to do the assessment and the disbursement, because we cannot fund the groups. So they manage their own, they form their own groups. Thank you.
Please, what is the repayment period?
The repayment period is a year, and the group have, they decide. We have some groups that goes for eight weeks, but largely it's a year. But sometimes the women, if they want the money, they can even tell you 5 months, 6 months. But we tell them, no, you need to invest. We are not like the financial, so we give them advice. So the minimum months you can go for our distance is 8 months. Okay. So 8 to 1 year. So largely they understand and they appreciate that they need to invest what they have taken, so it's yielding some results in their business, and they can start repayment. Yes, so we give that advice as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. And Emmanuel, I like your persistence, you know. You're asking very salient questions. Thank you also for that. So we have Kenneth and Ben Okra. Yeah, I can see some hands being raised. Okay, I'll just try to take them, you know, in the order, and we hope that time permits. We have Kenneth Aneto. Kenneth, you have the floor, please.
Okay, thank you so much, sir, for the opportunity. Thank you, Madam Barbara. Thank you, Mr. Mohammed. This has been a very enlightening class. It's now that I'm seeing that I have been a social entrepreneur for a long time, and I've just been thinking I'm an NGO person. Well, actually, my question goes like this. I've been consulting for the National Assembly, and I consult for one of the regional development commissions in Nigeria. It does development for about 6 states. So I was told to develop a plan for an empowerment program for 6 of the states. And I'm seeing that the Mr. Mohammed's model is very beautiful. So I don't know whether there's a way that we can contact you or we can work together on this project, because usually what has been done in different years and over time is that they just go there and they share monies or they give them something. But I think like with this method, your model, because you're expecting a feedback from the people. So it will mean that you have some form of following up on them to make sure that what is given to them, they actually use it for something. So I don't know how we can get his contact and see how we can work together to create this model. It's in northern Nigeria, northeast Nigeria.
Great.
Yes, so I would like to get his contact for that.
Thank you very much for that. So Mohammed and hopefully Barbara, we will definitely come back to you should you give us the consent to share your contact.
Yes, and secondly, so from what I'm understanding now is that it's better to start another separate business entity, and that entity will not be registered as an NGO now. It will be registered like a limited liability, because in Nigeria we have 3 categories of businesses. We have business name, we have the limited liability, then we have the incorporated trust. That's the NGO. That's the NGO. So right now, us creating this will not be creating an NGO, but it's now be like creating a full business, like a limited liability company.
Yes.
Is that a question?
Yes, that's the question.
Okay. Mohammed, do you want to take that question quickly, please?
Yes. Okay, thank you so much. That is my advice. It's always good to get a different vehicle to run the social enterprise because of the laws of the country. I think we in Ghana also have similar one, and that is why I'm pushing. But for a start, you can still be micromanaging the model within your NGO as you grow before you can look for maybe a different vehicle. So try to do that. This is what we did, and it has worked so well for us in Ghana here. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. So I can see Ben Okra. Ben, please.
Yes. Thank you, Jim. I raised my hand and I got a call, so I had to step out a little bit. So thank you very much. Yes. Thank you, Barbara. I met Barbara recently, UK. Barbara, thank you for your presentation. We enjoyed it. Just that the hustlers was a bit of something for us, because in Ghana, if you say a hustler, it's more or less getting closer to something else. So thank you for the knowledge and everything you have shared. Now, Mohammed, you did make mention of desirability of your project. I think that is when we were talking about the lenses, desirability, feasibility, and viability, and things of that nature. And I think that I want to add also that proof of concept, or when you have customer validation, there are things that you can use in improving your, in leveraging supporters or funders to your, social enterprise activity. Now, again to you, Mohammed, you did mention that there is a Ghana Enterprise Agency Act or something of that nature.
Mr.
Okay,
Ben.
so talking about policy and regulation. Hello,
yes. Mr. Ben. Please, the interpreters. I think you are fast.
Yes,
okay.
I lost you in your first question. Can you pick it again? I think my network.
The first one was just an addition to your presentation on the desirability of your project.
Okay.
So I was acting that it's good also to do a proof of concept. That is when you run the project on a smaller scale. And then if it's appealing, you can just scale it up. Then also about your customers, your end users, you could do what we call the customer validation. That is also a very good thing. So I'm just adding this to what you presented. My question actually, yes, my question is on the policy and regulatory environment for us in Ghana as pertaining to an NGO engaging on a social enterprise. You did make mention of a policy, an act that has the Ghana Enterprise Agency Act or something of that nature. I don't know whether it has provisions for NGOs. You know, in the case of Chuluka, Barbara's presentation, you know, the NGO, the principal entity was different from the subsidiary that was engaging in social enterprising. But with what he presented, was like, it was all in-house. You know, are there any policy that support us? But way back 3 or 4 years back, there was something like the social enterprise policy or draft or something. I don't know how far that has gone. So my question now is that, how conducive is the environment or enabling for us NGOs to engage in these social enterprise models? Do we have to establish a separate entity, a subsidiary like was done in Zambia? Or you can just remain just as NOSAC and still, you know, maneuvering its way around? So basically, this is my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ben, for the addition and the question. I think I can see John Obwaba. Please, your question, and kindly go straight to your question. I really wish we can take all the questions, so please just hit hard on the question. John, please.
Okay, thank you very much. My question goes to Mohammed. In his presentation, he presented the way forward for the PIFA fund, and he spoke about investments. I mean, trying to solicit investments from individuals and institutions to be able to grow the fund. I'm asking, in terms of regulatory framework, because once you're trying to take investment from people, then you are playing within the realms of the regulatory framework within the financial sector. Are they thinking around anything regulatory requirements, or how do they plan to, I mean, take these investments and pay people returns on investment? Because that has to do with financial regulations. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mohammed, I'll leave you to take these 2 questions quickly before we can see if we can take more. Mohammed, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. John, for your question. Yes, I think we at NIV, we are mindful of the regulatory requirement, but because we are working on the wheels of social entrepreneurship, more of the investments that I talked about, we are looking at these impact investors. So for impact investors, yes, they can willingly forgo whatever return that may come. Some too can accept any return. And that is why I mentioned that we are looking for these kind of investors so that even when they are going to have return, it will be below the market return. And I think it is acceptable within the laws of the country. But I'll have to do more of research regarding the regulatory requirements around that, because we want to be dealing with more of social impact investors. But thank you so much for bringing this. At our end, we have been discussing around that, and we'll be guided by the laws of the country. Regarding the first one, about enabling environment. Yes, if you look at the 2, there are differences when an organization is a subsidiary and when an organization is a related entity. The difference is that for the subsidiary, it means that one is a holding company or organization. So it means that one is owning the other. But for related company or related entity, it means that the owners of the 2 are the same. So to be comfortable within the laws of the country, those are for related company. And there's a reason for that. Because NIV wants to do business, or NOSA would like to do business with NIV. Following all the procedure to see things come up with the target, and also other principles. And because of that, that's why we want to do. But it is going to be subsidiary.
Please, Mohammed, your sound is getting faint, and we can't hear you clearly.
Okay, sorry. I think it's the next one.
Maybe kindly continue.
Okay, thank you. So I was explaining that in terms of the enabling environment, we have one organization. If an organization is a subsidiary to another, and if an organization is a related entity, I was saying that the difference is that if you are a subsidiary, an organization is subsidiary to another, it means that one owns another. But if they are related entity, it means that they have the same owners, but one does not own the other. And for that matter, that is why NOSAC, because of the laws of the country, we suitably went in for a related entity. The owners of NIV are the same owners of NOSAC. So with that one, if you follow all the principles, you can do business with each other. But if it is a subsidiary, the risk involved in terms of conflict of interest will be very high, and you cannot do business with each other. So let's be mindful of which one should we go. It may work very well for Zambia, for subsidiary, but in Ghana, I think issues of conflict of interest could be flagged at any point in time. So this is what maybe I can just add in addition to what have been said earlier on. Thank you. I hope, John,
thank you.
John, I can link up and we'll talk more on the regulations.
Great. Thank you very much, Mohammed. I think we have two last questions. I think some colleagues are raising their hands and putting them down. We are almost exceeding the time, but with your permission, we will take Daniel and we have Emily Slobo. So let me begin with Daniel, please. Straight to your question, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Kojo, and thank you for WACSI and Star Ghana. My hands were up long time. Now to the question. It's just a contribution to John's initial, this importance of the social enterprise. And one thing that we don't value, which is very, very important, is effective social enterprise reduces social vices. And I don't want us to go, but I think the understanding is clear there. The more we involve, we do social enterprises, the youth especially who are involved in so many other vices may reduce because they normally don't have employment and they will rely on some of these social enterprises. And also with Barbara, the use of the hustler, this thing for me is more of a challenge. Why don't we use, in Ghana, we have the national service that are coming out. Such even private company can apply for some of them. They finish the national service and they don't have anything to do. So if you employ them for their national service period and their capacity is built, then they can also decide to start up their own business, or they can join the social enterprises that we are talking about. So this is my contribution. But the question is how are we doing the assessing the customers or the beneficiaries? Because sometimes we just decide that these people will need our services, but as to the cost of them accessing the services is economically okay than when they compare it to other similar services nearby. So since we rush into deciding that these people need our services, then we include them in our analysis, and at the end, it doesn't work out. So I'm asking, how do we re-engineer that kind of beneficiary and customers who need our service? Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Before I come to you, Mohammed, to take on those questions, dear colleagues, there is a link that has been shared in the chat. Kindly click on it. We just want to get your appreciation of this session to help us improve for future sessions. And then I'll move over to Emily. Emily, your question, kindly send it straight to the point so that our panelists can take these last questions. Emily, thank you.
Yeah, okay. First of all, I want to thank the WACSI family for this great experience sharing. I'm so happy, I'm so excited. I'm working with our NGO, a women NGO in Guinea. And we really depending on donors funding, but we've been wondering really what to do to have our own funding. So I'm so excited about this social enterprise. Again, I will come back to WACSI to really guide me on what to do, how to create a social enterprise.
Great. Thank you so much, Emily. And, kudos.